everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is Radul Live, where we talk sport every weekend. Today we're going to talk about volleyball again because it is one of my favorite sports, I confess. But I am not as knowledgeable about volleyball than my colleague, and I call him colleague because he is a fellow journalist, Samuel Gacharira.
Correct.
Samuel, how are you doing?
I'm good.
You know, it's so hard interviewing fellow journalists because you'll ask me questions back. But we will have a conversation about volleyball simply because you, and we'll talk about this later, from where you sit as a journalist, you feel you can go into the management of volleyball. But we'll get to that in the second half of the show. Tell us first how you got into volleyball, since you're also a player.
Yeah, it's been how many years? Since I was 6, 7. And actually I got into volleyball. I like saying I got into volleyball by accident because I was a football player. I was born and raised in Githurai 45. And as you know, that is one of the Maisa zones. So I used to be a very good football player. Could play left wing or left back.
Ish.
But around class 5, 6, we used to play in the same team with Cargo and Kahata. Yeah, but class 5, 6, I used to, holiday tuition was introduced. So that would mean on weekends, I didn't have time to go and play. So where we used to live, before you get home, there is a volleyball court. So I'd go, drop my bag, then wait for the ball to go outside court, then return it to the wazes who are playing. Then slowly I started playing volleyball. Then that's how I started playing volleyball, just like that. Then after that, I went to high school, continued with the sport, that is at Starehe. Played for 4 years, then I was lucky to get a scholarship to Strathmore University. Actually, we are the pioneers of the volleyball team, the Jaguars. And in our time there, from achieving nothing, by the time we were leaving, we were 4-time national champions.
Ish. But you don't say.
No. Yeah, so it's been quite a journey. Also, I was very lucky after leaving high school, that is 2011, in 2012, at the tender age of 17. I think I still hold that record, the youngest player to play in the league.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I joined Coop Bank. And at that time we were coached by Coach Juma Waluku. Then from there, juggled between school and Coop Bank, moved to Forest Rangers, that is Kenya Forest Service, that's the name they use now. Left, played for Nairobi Water. Then journalism came, and I had to choose between playing and journalism. You know our job is on weekends. So it's a bit tough to juggle between the two. Yeah. So.
But it's always such a balancing act, because at the end of the day, you would love to say I chose volleyball, but at the end of the day, you have bills to pay, and unfortunately, the sport will not, at the current time, pay the bills.
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges that the sport is facing at the moment, because the demands, I like putting it this way, the demands are professional, but the dues are amateur. So like you need to train hard, you need to eat well, you need to do some extra bit by yourself on the side, like go for morning run. All these things you're doing so that come match day you'll perform well. But at the end of the day, you look at what you're getting from playing, and you see it's not commensurate. Like for me personally, when I decided to retire early, I think I retired at, it was 2015. Is when
I was very young.
Yeah, very young. Yeah,
means you played like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, because at that time I remember even I was in the national under 23 team. But I remember I was in 4th year at Strathmore, but I used to play for Nairobi Water in the league. So we used to train at Steamer Club in Ruaraka. Then after the company employed almost half of the team, we were moved to Ndakaini. So we used to train in a place called Ngedu. For you to get to Ngedu, you'd travel like another 50 kilometers from Thika town. So I used to come all the way because at that time I was still in school. I used to live in along Bagathi way. So you can imagine going all the way to Ndakaini and back.
Just for training.
Just for training and coming
games.
Back. So roughly you're spending around give or take 600 shillings per day from your pocket. Then come end of the month, the team manager tells you the allowance has delayed, but we are looking into it. The story goes on 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months.
You can't afford it unless you have another source of income.
Exactly. So you look at the pros and cons and you try to balance, then you see it's prudent to choose the career way. So that's how I moved into
journalism. But as a journalist, because me, if I see a breaking volleyball story, if it is not on Samuel's platforms, it has not happened.
Yes.
So at least you were still serving volleyball in a different capacity.
No, actually, initially, when I started journalism, or when I thought I'd be a journalist, it was in that year. And it happened, I think, I'll also say by accident, because my undergraduate, I got a scholarship to study actuarial science at Strathmore University. That's what I did in my undergraduate. So along the way in that year, I realized this thing is not for me. So there's a blog owned by your friend Okinyo Collins called Soccer 25 East. Yes. So I used to write for him. So slowly, I started feeling now this is what I want to do, because for me sports has been part of me from a very young age.
It's a calling.
Yes. So I just knew I have to finish this degree because I'm on scholarship and the school is paying like 85%, and you know Strathmore fees is crazy, over 160,000 per semester. So you can't say like you'll get out of the scholarship. So yeah, I said let me finish, then afterwards I pursue my passion. Then slowly, as you're saying, the gods aligned. From Soccer 25 East, I moved to futa.com. Then from futa.com, I moved to Mathare United as the communication manager. I think at that time I was 22 years. So.
And volleyball was calling.
Yeah, but volleyball is always home and is always calling. But at some point I knew I'd return. It's just that my gateway to journalism was through football. And of course, football was also a part of me in a way, but I knew in the long run, I'll serve volleyball. So when I got the opportunity to join Nation Media Group, then I had to come back to volleyball like full time now.
And now we also have social media platforms which allow you to do whatever you want. Because I see you at all these international tournaments. You have to tell me as who, but I see in Egypt, in where, I see you covering these events. So are those for Nation Media Group, or it's for the federation? It's in what capacity?
No, I was lucky. I got nominated to the CAVB Media Commission. CAVB is the equivalent of CAF for volleyball. It's the African body that governs volleyball. So when you see me there, I'm working for CAVB, but by extension, I'm also serving my employer in one way or another. Yeah.
Which I think is good. So in the course of and I may be jumping the gun a bit because we are going to talk about the politics of the game. In the course of your coverage of the game, what is the one or two or few things you've seen that are not working, that disturb you and that make you feel like you can do something about?
Well, I think for every player, you need to have the peace of mind. If you've played any sport, by the time you're going to court, you don't need to worry about maybe where your transport home is coming from. You don't need to worry about your next meal. You don't need to worry about what will happen if my allowance finishes this weekend or I exhaust it this weekend, because that is what used to happen. And sadly for volleyball, you find that the culture is most of the teams are institutional-based clubs. So for the club to run, the players are put in an allowance program. So for every trip, we used to play a rotational league. We have 8 legs across the season. So for us to get the monthly allowance, we have to travel to Eldoret so that the team manager requests for per diem, people are traveling and stuff like that. So you realize, as I said before, the demands are professional, but the returns are amateur. So you get your allowance from the team manager, and let's say you get like 10,000 for a whole month, and you wonder, is this rent? Is this food? Is this fair?
But it can't cover any.
Yes, so at the end of the day, you realize that you are paying the sport for you to play the sport instead of the sport to pay you, which shouldn't happen, because I attended a course during my time at Mathare, and the basic definition of a professional player is that it's someone who is drawing some income from the game. So the moment you are paying the game, then it's not adding up. And I think this is something that we need to talk about at a different level, because you look at countries that we are meant to be competing with at the, just even at the continental level. Look at Tunisia, look at Egypt, look at Cameroon. You find that
continent, not even beyond.
Yeah, just locally, you find that the players are well enumerated. Like for instance, I think in 2020, I accompanied the women's team to Cameroon for the Olympic qualifiers, and luckily at that time, their men's team, the Cameroon's men's team, was preparing for, I think, African Games in Morocco. Yeah, no, they were preparing for their Olympic qualifiers, which were to be held a week after the women's. So they were training in Cameroon. And I could see, because where we used to train at the same venue. You see players are coming in big cars, Range Rovers, Mercedes, and you compare with the situation back home. A player is even walking to training, some combining like 4 or 5 matatus so that to get to training.
If you're getting 10,000 allowance a month, by the way, it's not even transport.
Yeah, so
transport's not the priority, food is.
So you see, by the time these two teams are playing against each other, already on the psychological bit, this player has already beaten you because he's settled. He doesn't have to worry about allowances. He's good, and this is something that, especially for the men's game, is for the women's game at least we are at a good level, because you'll find clubs like Pipeline, KCB, Kenya Prisons offer employment. Then the ones that don't offer employment, at least they give good contracts. You get 100K and above is good money. You can plan yourself around that money. But if you look at the men's game, the league matches are the most attended for locally in Kenya. Yeah, actually, if you come and see the crowd that attends men's matches compared to the women's matches, you might think the men's game is more popular. But if you look at the returns, is negligible. So that is one thing that that really hurts me, and I try to look at the situation home, and I think that with the right support, I think we can do something in men's volleyball. But we can't do it if we are not ready to have this difficult conversation of what is going into the player's pocket. I think when we start talking about that, then we are talking about real development.
I'll get into those details in the second half. I just wanted to comment when you were talking about you paying the sport. People say if you're passionate, you should play. If you're... I hear a lot of conversations around, especially football. They say footballers in the 80s and 90s never cared about money. They played for the passion of it. But as much as that is true, at the end of the day, you have bills. You have rent, you have school fees, you have family in Ushago waiting for something, you have, as you say, you need proper diet, you need all these things cost money. So if the money is not coming in, as much as the passion is there, that's what makes, I always say some of the best footballers, and clearly you told me some of the best volleyballers, have office jobs.
Yeah.
They became journalists and teachers and doctors and lawyers because the sport is not playing. And then when you go to international tournaments, we're the first to say, look at them, they never even win one game, you know?
No, I think You know, the modern world has changed, Carol. We are not in the 80s, we are not in the 90s. And I think this is one thing that has really not changed in sub-Saharan Africa. You look at those days you're saying, 80s, 90s, even in football, we could challenge the likes of Aspirant, Al Ahly, we could even beat them. But between 1990 and 2005, there's something that happened in North Africa that East and Central Africa didn't take note of. And that is the commercialization of the sport. I'll give you an example.
And this is all sport, not just
volleyball. It trickles down, because I'll give you an example. Last year I was in Tunisia for the Women's Club Championship. But around that time, we had one of our players, he's called Abud. He is currently in France, playing in the second division league. But at that time, he was based in Tunisia, playing for a club called Kelibia. Kelibia is like the Madare of Tunisian volleyball. It's a club known for nurturing young talents. Like anybody who goes through Kelibia makes a good player. So Abud was earning around 250,000 at that time, having been given an apartment and everything. But after doing my research, my friends in Tunisia told me Kelibia is the worst paying club. Worst. The worst paying club. Like everybody's dreams of leaving Kelibia. I get the basics, then I look for a better club. Now, 85% of the Tunisian national team is made of Esperance players. The players, they're earning around 800K just playing at home. So how do you expect us to compete with such players if our very own, even buying equipment like a proper shoe, how much does a proper Mizuno shoe cost for indoors? 20,000. Can a player afford 3 pairs? He can't. That's his salary for a whole month or even less.
And yet this is your competition when you go
so
these tournaments.
So you can see that the gap is too big. And for me on the volleyball side, I say it's easier to achieve it because you look at the clubs playing in the National League, for instance. You have your GSU, you have your Equity Bank, you have your Kenya Forest Service, you have your KPAs. All these are institutional clubs. If we can put a cap and say that for a National League team, a National League player, every club has to pay a minimum of 50,000. Because I've said this is the modern world. You'll find that not everybody will be good in books. Maybe I'm an A student on the volleyball court, but in academics I'm 0. Not everybody can balance. Because long time ago we used to say, just play well, maybe you'll get a job. But there are people who don't even have those grades to get employment. But they are so good, they are exceptional on the court. So does it mean that this player cannot make a living out of his talent? So I think...
And we see it happening all over the world. Some of the best sports people never graduated, never finished school.
Yeah, the Ronaldos of this world have employed some of the best brains academically, you see? Yeah. So these are the kind of conversation that we need to have, that yes, we might not have everybody who is so good at books, but on court or in sports, he's an A student. So he has to earn from that. And I think these are conversations that has to trickle down right from the national government all the way to our federations.
So I want us to take a short break. When we come back, you tell us which position you're vying in and what is your campaign promise and your hopes and dreams for the game of volleyball. So we take a short break. See you in a bit, guys. We're talking volleyball in Kenya and men's volleyball, which we don't often talk about.
Sure.
Welcome back. This is Radul Live. We're talking about volleyball today, and I'm with Samuel Gacharira, a fellow journalist. He's a journalist at Nation Media Group, but a former player, former professional player. And now Samuel feels I can change the game. You are going for the position of Deputy Secretary General?
Yes.
In the Federation? When are the elections? When are the elections coming up?
The elections will be held end of October. Initially, we were to have them end of July, but they were moved since there was a constitutional threshold that wasn't met. So they were moved until end of October.
And Deputy Secretary General, why not Secretary General? Why not President? I'm one step at a time.
Yeah, one step at a time. I think I'm someone who's benefited a lot from learning from some of the experienced administrators we have. Someone like the President, Waitha Kakioni, somebody I have a lot of respect for. And many other people who have been in and around the game. And I think actually a lot of people wanted me to go for the full SG. But I told them I want to start at deputy, then go a step higher maybe next time or when after 2 terms or something. So I think that's a good place to begin. Yeah,
it is a good place to begin. Currently you have a position in the Federation, in the marketing department.
Yes, I'm a secretary of the marketing commission. It has been a great learning curve for me, serving for the last 4 years since 2018. And one thing that I've learned, and I think there's something that has fueled my ambition to go for this seat, is that we can't talk about volleyball moving to another level or to a professional level without us first creating a culture of every Kenyan is talking about volleyball, at least. Because you go to a company and you tell them that we have a very good product, we have the national team, they are 9-time champions of Africa, we have all our best players playing locally, so they are readily available for you, blah, blah, blah. And you see the marketing executive or the CEO is first shocked that you mean these girls are 9-time champions of Africa? They don't know, and you can't blame them. So one of the things we need to do is to change the format of our league, because you look at how we play our league. We stay cold for a whole month. Then we have our legs at the end of the month. So you find like one leg we are playing 40 matches or 20 matches. Yet we could spread these games over the 4 weekends in that
so
1 month.
People are constantly talking about the game.
Yes.
And remembering, because 40 games, I won't even remember the scores.
Exactly. And you find that even the timing and how we schedule our matches, maybe GSU is playing Prisons, that is for the men's side. You put that game at Friday 9 a.m. It's like Gore FC at 9 a.m. Who watches? And that's on Friday first. It's a weekday. So there's a lot of planning that we need to do. And
so you want to change a bit of the league format, or I'm assuming if you're going for deputy SG, the SG and the president, you have a team? Do you have a team of like-minded people?
Yeah, of course, that's the goal, that once you assume office, you get elected alongside people, who are you're like-minded. But over and above that, you have to live with the reality that that's just a fantasy. It might not happen. So once you get into office, what do you do? And for me, one thing I really want to say is that I want the clubs, that is at club level, I want the normal player, the normal volleyball player, not the exceptional one, the normal volleyball player, just an average player. If he can make his 30,000 for a start, out of the game consistently every month, then for me, I think even in 2026, if I'll have achieved that, then I might not even vie for another term. I'll be happy.
No, you will stay and you make sure they double that pay.
I'll be happy.
The next term.
But it has, we have to have that conversation that we are building for 3-4 years. Actually, like maybe our first term, it will be a building phase. then maybe the benefits will come even afterwards in the second term. But I want us to have that conversation that we have a broadcaster first of all for our league matches, because once we are getting eyeballs to our league, then we can talk to the corporate world about them pumping money into the sport. Once we are getting fans into the stadium and they are coming in big numbers and the league is organized, because you find sometimes some of these clubs, they have a budget of, let's say, 20-30 million in a season. But this club has invested such an amount of money, and in a month's time, they don't know who they are playing next.
Aye.
So, yeah, you just give a draft fixture, but come the material day, the fixtures are jumbled up. So even people struggle to believe that this is a national league.
But why does the federation lack personnel? What's the issue?
No, I think the first thing that has really hurt volleyball for a long time, everybody has been thinking of it as a pastime. Pastime.
As with most of our sports, I think it's just pastime.
Exactly, and that's why I was really happy when Paul came back to the country, Paul Bitok. You can see what he's done at KCB. He's come and told the KCB management, look, the last time KCB won the club championship title, that was in 2005. I was the head coach. He came back, I think, 2018. Then we had COVID and stuff. So let's say he started working 2020. And within an year, he's been able to transform KCB into a side that has conquered Africa. But how has he done it? He's gone and sat with the management and told them that for us to attract the best players, your Moims, your Noels, your Sharon Chepchumba, they need to earn good money. Yeah, and that's how a player like Moim will be convinced to leave her permanent job at prisons and come to KCB, because
she did, yes.
She looks at the maths and it makes sense to her. After doing that, even less than 6 months later, Pipeline have improved their contracts. So players are running over 100. So you see, the net effect trickles down. And I think this is the conversation we need to have, that for you to get the best players and for us to get serious at just the league level, people need to get money into their pockets. Once I know I'm getting this amount of money, then I'll be able to think of volleyball as a job and not just a pastime, because I think that's what has been hurting. Look at what I saw you hosted Richard the other day here of Trailblazers.
Yes.
We talk a lot.
Well-organized club. Yes.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. We talk a lot. We exchange notes a lot. And I look at the investment he's been able to put in his club, and you get the feeling that if he doesn't get something in return in the next 3 or 4 years, then you get the sponsor fatigue, because you're doing it from your pocket. Then you can't sustain it for very long. So we have to ensure that the structures are there, and people see that even though we are not making money now, but we do a projection 2, 3 years or 4 years from now, we'll be able to get to a certain level. I think if football did it, and I've been in the football environment for quite some time with Madare, I think we can do it.
Yeah, but football unfortunately hasn't managed to sustain it because sponsors coming in and out because of their management issues.
Yes.
How are you intending to attract those sponsors? Because you need the sponsorship money.
Yeah, the first thing I've said is first we've taken a good step in aligning our calendar to the FIVB calendar. So now we are playing. A long time we used to play January to December. Now we are playing August to May, which is the
international calendar.
Yeah, that's the international calendar.
I didn't know that.
So that's a step in the right direction because it gives our national team a very good and ample time to prepare, such that you look at the previous calendar. By the time we get into national team competitions, it was in between the season. But now it will be after the playoffs.
Yeah, because the World Cup is usually around September, October.
Yes. So
World Championships.
Yeah, so this time round.
Yeah, that was in the middle of our
Yeah, so it cost a lot of things, like stopping the league, allowing players to go to camp. And you know, in volleyball, it's the other way around, unlike football. In volleyball, national teams comes first, clubs second. So you'll find that FIVB will give a lot of consideration for Kenya if our national teams are doing well. And that's why you've seen we've gotten a chance to train in Brazil for the last 2 months, because the national team is at a good level. So if we can get our clubs, like last season, a team like KCB had 2 foreigners. In the men's league, Trailblazers had 3 foreigners. So it is already showing with our amateur level, we are still able to attract some of the best talents in the region. What if we put money into this game? I dream of a day when we'll be outbidding Al Ahly for a player, a Kenyan club, you understand?
Yeah.
Because what has it taken that Tunisian players, despite all the interest from Europe and other teams, they are comfortable. Let me play in Aspirant.
They stay in Europe because in Tunisia because the money is there.
Another thing is the competitiveness of our league. If you play 8 legs, that means at the end of the season, if it's a 14-team league, you've played 14 matches, but spread over 8 months. As opposed to us having an home and away format. If we have 14 teams in the league, then we increase that to home and away. So we make it a 26 match league.
So you're playing almost every weekend?
Yes. And after you play every weekend, when we go to the playoffs, how our playoffs is designed at the moment is that the top 4 teams face each other. But I want to change this and have an extended time for the playoffs, because that makes us compete with football at the same level, that volleyball matches are going on and football is going on. Because what has been the challenge is, as we sit down, wait until end month to play all our matches in one weekend. But football is being played midweek weekend.
So people are talking about football.
So even if when you go to a sponsor, he's seeing football in the papers, in the news, everything. So naturally he'll go to football.
Since you're here, our ladies are in Brazil. I did manage to have a conversation with the chairman, Waithaka Kioni, the other day. I remember I called you because the girls were complaining about their allowances not being paid, and there was a valid reason, as in the government didn't come through for the team, and the money that had come from the sponsor was for specific tournaments, but that issue I know is being addressed. But given the preparation the Malkia Strikers have had this time around, what are we expecting at the World Championships from them? Now I'm asking you as an analyst, not politics, as a journalist and a fan.
I think I've watched the team play, actually 2 full matches in Brazil, one that they won and another one that they lost against the Brazil junior team. And I can tell you for free that there's reason for us to be optimistic at the World Championships. I watched Cameroon play at the Islamic Solidarity Games that ended last month. They don't look that competitive. They've lost four senior team players: Moma, Fotsu, Nana, and who else? Amana. So I think we can beat Cameroon. I'm confident we can beat Cameroon because we are in Pool A with Cameroon, Italy, Belgium, the host Netherlands, Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico look beatable. I think I watched Tunisia beat their men's team last week in the World Championships. I think we can beat Puerto Rico, and that means with those 2 wins, we can make it to the second round because 4 teams proceed to the second round. So actually, I can put my money on Malkia Strikers. So if you are willing to place a bet, we can place that bet.
I'll hold it for you.
I'll give it to the producer after this show.
Now, as we wind up, I was told you have a MTA team. By the way, our photographer here, he has his own team which he's trying to register, which you have to tell me how to register a team. I know you've told him how to register, what he needs to do to register a team, but he tells me that he can beat your MTA team. Which is your MTA team?
My MTA team is where I was raised and grew up, Githurai Kimbo. Actually, I'm very proud of what we've done because apart from us having a senior team, we have an academy. And the academy that we have, like now we have around 40 kids. We train them on weekends and every Saturday and Sunday. And we are happy that we started in 2011. And we're happy that how many years later? 11 years later, we have 6 products that we can say we are proud of. 2 are attached to the Kenya Defence Forces team, that is Silas Otieno and Josephat Mushai. Another one, Brian Kamonde, he plays for KPA. We have Peter Kamau playing for Strathmore University under scholarship. We had Philip Njoroge playing for Kenya Forest Service and Equity Bank. And these kids, because I trained them from a very young age, are one of the reasons I chose to retire early and move into administration. Because
you've seen the possibilities.
I saw the possibility, and for a player like Philip Njoroge, it really hurt me seeing him stop playing volleyball, like at that competitive level, because he's one of the best liberos I've seen. And me being a player, I can tell you a good player. But it's the same thing that happened to me. He comes from a very humble background where you have to support your parent by hustling. And it reached a point here to make that difficult decision between playing and catering for his family.
Pockets.
Yes.
Passion and pockets.
So I sat and thought, because we have like 60 kids coming through the academy, if in 10 years time, when they get to an age where they can play in the league, they still find us going to Eldoret, Bungoma, going around the country, you know, the current format we have in the league, then they'll have all the reason to blame me and tell me, you wasted our time. We'd have done something else. So I sat and thought about it. I said, in as much as people say the sports management waters in Kenya are very murky, we just have to go in there and
try and clean it up.
And try and do our best. Not clean it up, we do our best.
Do
because clean it, you can do your best at individual level, but it takes a collective effort. But over and above that, I think we are very lucky this year to get a good partnership with an organization called Let's Keep the Ball Flying. It's based in Netherlands, owned by a guy called Leslie Dion. He's a former coach of the Nepal volleyball team. And we met online and we exchanged ideas. I told him I have a young academy here, maybe you can support us. And last year, they were able to send us around 20 balls and jerseys and equipment for the team. Next month, when I go to Netherlands for the World Championships, we link up and we get more equipment from them. So we are happy that what we started 11 years ago has been able to get support, not just locally, but beyond. Institutions like Strathmore University and other secondary schools getting players directly from our academy is something that we are really proud of. And personally, it's something, having retired early, I say that is my package to volleyball. I give you
done something.
I give you more players.
You've done something, but you can do more. Okay, how do you register a team? Now that I was asked.
How you register a team?
The brief version, because we have like a minute left.
Yeah, I'll try to go very fast. Actually, anybody who wants to register a team now is very lucky, because a long time you'd have started in Division 2, but now there's only one league. So you'll go straight into the National League. So I think I'll have to confirm this with the treasurer. There's a registration fee that needs to be paid to the federation, then the affiliation fee. Then I think depending on the number of players that you'll have, I think there's a fee for every player. And then you need to have money to sustain your team throughout the season so that you can own all fixtures. Then I think you're good to go. It's that simple.
And in terms of facilities, I know we didn't discuss that, but I've had this, I had Poppy talk here before, I've had Kioni on this show as well. And I know one of the challenges we go through is that we train, countrywide, we train a lot outdoors, but when it comes to competition, we play indoors, but we don't have those indoors facilities apart from, I think it's just Nyayo and Kasarani.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but I'll go back to what I said. We need to put money into the sport for us to get money in future. I'm happy that Pipeline today is training indoors. They have built their own simple facility.
Oh, fantastic.
And now they're training indoors. KCB, the last time I talked to one of the coaches, he told me that they already have their budget approved to build an indoor facility at their base in Ruaraka. So you see, if we can get 4 or 5 clubs, then Ulinzi are planning to move to Langata.
Their complex in Langata.
Yes. I don't like the word complex, but let's call it that for now.
We say it when it's just a pitch and and a changing room.
Yeah, but at least it serves the purpose. So at least if we can get our 6-7 clubs building their own facilities, then even the national team, the level will go up, because you look like Trailblazers. They have an arrangement with ABSA where they train at Barclays. It's also an indoor facility. So it's encouraging that clubs have started taking this initiative. And that's
then if the players spend more time with the club so that they get that experience playing indoor.
Yeah, and that's why I keep saying that this conversation of us changing our game has to start at club level, because you can already see clubs have started the initiative. So it's up to us now at federation level to meet them
it to the
up
next
there.
level.
Yeah.
Samuel Gacharira, thank you. Thank you for this conversation. I wish you all the best as you go for Deputy Secretary General. I hope you get it. I don't want to say if you don't, but if you don't, please don't give up on Kenyan volleyball. They need people like you. Then I get all my volleyball information from you.
Thank you.
Know? So keep it up, and thanks for coming on Radul Live.
Asante.
But we'll keep this conversation going, because I know volleyball, if there's any sport that can put our name in lights, and if the girls do well at the World Championship, more and more fans will begin to appreciate this game, and corporates as well. So thank you guys for watching Radul Live, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.